Hey guys, Dave again. Welcome back. On this channel we like to talk about things that the government are doing. Sometimes on the up and up, sometimes not. Sometimes things that they're trying to side pass you. When we're not talking about how awesome Wyoming is and the fact that you should move here. So in this one, I've been digging around and looking at some different things, and I wanted to talk to you about a little secret that the government has going on here that people aren't talking about and they're not really letting be known. That secret, the government's sitting on an absolute ton of money. And I don't understand why we're trying to get another $1.9 trillion. The government has $1.6 trillion sitting in their bank account. Yes, the government has a checking account, if you will. It's called the Federal General Account. So basically, this account's held at different Federal Reserve banks, but it's how the government pays for its bills. So when it has an obligation, money comes out of that account and goes out into one of the banks, and then it gets paid from there. So it's basically held. So basically, this account back in March, and we'll go ahead and we'll pull up the Fred website, which will show this to you. So back in March, this Federal General Account, the government checking account, we'll just call it checking account from now on, just to make it easy and so that I don't get tongue twisted. So basically, the checking account had $376 billion, $0.975 billion in it. So right around March, same time the hit, and we rolled out the CARES Act. So all told, the CARES Act had $2.6 trillion or so of stimulus in it. And we'll get into some of that in a second. So if you look at the government's checking account, in April, it was up to $783 billion. May, $1.2 trillion. And then in July, we're looking at $1.7 trillion. And if we look at the latest figure we have right now, it's sitting at 1.629 or 1.6 trillion, $290 billion and some change. So let's call it $1.63 trillion, which you can see on your screen. So the government's sitting on $1.63 trillion. Now, where'd that difference in money come from? So if we go over here and we look at Data Lab breaks down for us sort of how government spending works. It's a really great website. It'll give you a ton of information, almost overwhelming amount of information. It's fantastic. So if we go ahead and we look, this new agency funding basically encompasses all of the CARES Act money. So in that, we had about $2.59 trillion of stimulus money between the CARES Act and the expanded Payroll Protection Act. So of this, $801 billion of that was unobligated. So we allocated that money, but then we didn't give it to anybody. Nobody came asking for it. Like, we just didn't use it. So it fell into that Treasury account, our checking account. So if we look down, we then get into March 27th, where the first wave really hits. So that $801 billion is total out of the whole bill. So in March, on March 27th, through the course of that time, that's where $691 billion of that $800 billion came from. We get into April, paycheck protection has sort of been exhausted, and now we're into the enhanced portion. Well, even in the enhanced portion, there was $106 billion left over. So between that and some of these little pieces, it adds up to $801 billion. Now, don't forget that the government was also doing tariffs. So there was a ton of tariff money rolling in here from the EU and China and everything else that we were rolling out. So some of that money makes its way in here too. But all told, it's now bolstered the federal government's checking account to $1.63 trillion. Why are we taking on another $1.9 trillion? I don't know. If we go ahead and we look at just what's in this new $1.9 trillion spending plan. So there's $500 billion plus allocated in there. There's $170 billion for schools and universities. And then there's $350 billion for state and local aid. Basically bailing out the large cities that really just destroyed their tax base. But if you take the sum of $500 billion, 520-ish or so really is what's in here, we could bolster the budgets for multiple government agencies to really help out. And there's some that are near and dear to Wyoming. So if we look, the Department of Agriculture, Commerce, Education, Energy, Housing and Urban Development, Justice, Labor and Transportation combined don't even total that $520 billion. There's way better places to spend this money than what they're doing. I don't understand why they're pushing so hard for this $1.9 trillion package, or why it needs to be so large. The CBO came out and said basically that the economy will recover. 900 billion would really get it done if we wanted to accelerate it. To spend an extra $1 trillion, I don't understand why. To spend the $2 trillion now doesn't really make a lot of sense. All told, between the $900 billion package we did in December, the CARES Act, the expanded Paycheck Protection Program, we've done $3.5 trillion of stimulus already. Do we really need to do $5.4 trillion of stimulus? Our GDP is like half of that, like give or take. Why? Why are we spending this money? The government's hiding money from you, and they're storing money, and they're sitting on a bunch of money, and now they're taking on more debt. For why? For what's the reason? Like, get in, dig around, help me figure this out. Somebody explain this to me, please, in the comments. I'm definitely looking to you guys to help explain why this $1.9 trillion needs to be spent. Because right now, I'm just not seeing it.